please stand as we have the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's remain standing. Our kind of Heavenly Father, we come thanking you for this day. Thank you for waking us this morning. Thank you for watching over us through our work day. Thank you for bringing us right here to this point in time. We thank you for Chester County. We thank you for our country. We thank you for our nation. We ask that you continue to watch over this county and watch over its leaders, its employees, its citizens. And then we ask you to watch over our nation as we enter our election day tomorrow. I ask that you watch over each and every person voting, and let's just keep our country united and as one. These and all of the things, I ask in your Son Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Guy. Okay, number 2, the approval of minutes. We need the approval of October the 21st, 2024 council meeting. Need a motion on this.
I move that we approve the October 21st, 2024 council minutes as presented.
Need a second?
Second.
Second. Got a motion and a second. Any discussion, correction? Hear none, all in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
None opposed.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't
Oh.
attend that meeting, so I didn't vote on it.
Okay, all except Mr. Vaughn, he was not at the meeting. Okay, citizens' comments. Well, I think we have one on this that signed up for that, Ms. Shirley Tisdale. Is that correct? Come up and state your name and address.
My name is Shirley Tisdale. My address is 1083 Pineland Avenue, Chester, and I'm in District 5. And my comment is an incident that happened at the landfill 2 Saturdays ago. We were cleaning out a storage, and my sons, they took the first truckload to the landfill. It was fine, no problem. They took the second load to the landfill, and the guy told them, he said, well, it's gonna be, y'all not gonna have time to unload it. It's like maybe 6 minutes past the time he said that it would have taken them, but they was in a hurry, they would have got it unloaded. So on the 12th, they went back with another load, and they didn't have nowhere to load this, so they had to load the first load back in the storage building. So when we went back the second time, they said, oh, no, you can't do it. The truck is to where we can't see it. We can't see what all you got in it. And they asked me and said, well, can't you not look and see what we got in it? You know, it's the same stuff that we normally bring. And he said, no. Now, my problem is, if it's, and I talked to Molly, and she apologized for the first time, but she said she couldn't do anything about the second time because you governed by DHEC. Okay, I understand that. I worked for a corporate office company for 53 years. I understand rules and stuff, but there are some times when you need to do grace and mercy. For the first load, they saw that it was a truck. It was a rented truck. So then the second time, we rented a second truck. And now the stuff is at my house, look like a dumpster. Now, it's no sense in that. If you get times and stuff, maybe nobody has came and asked about maybe having a certain time where maybe you could change the hours for on Saturdays, because my first son, he's a school teacher. The other one, he does insurance. And I have no way of doing this. I'm a caretaker for a 97-year-old mother. And I think y'all need to reconsider about that. And I have no way of really, except spending more money, and I spend a lot of money on my house. And I drive expensive cars, and I'm paying a lot of money to Chester County, and never had to come and address you all about anything. But that's my concern. If you want to have people come to Chester, live in Chester, play in Chester, live in Chester, and pay taxes, you need to try to accommodate them.
Thank you,
So I
Ms.
thank
Tisdale.
you.
Thank you, Ms. Tisdale. number 5 on the agenda here is the public hearing. So at this time, I'll open the public hearing up, and does anyone have anything to comment on for the third reading of an ordinance 2024-16, an ordinance authorizing the Chester Fire District, Chester, South Carolina, to issue general obligation bond in the principal amount not exceeding $935,000 and providing for other related matters. Does anybody like to speak on that? Hearing none, officially close the public hearing. Okay, move to number 6, ordinance resolution and proclamation, the third reading of ordinance 2024-16, and ordinance authorizing the Chester Fire Department, South Carolina, to issue general obligations bond in the principal amount not exceeding $935,000 and providing for other related matters. Need a motion on that.
Make a motion to approve the third reading of ordinance 2024-16 for the Chester Fire District not to exceed $935,000.
Okay, and a second?
I'll second.
Second, got a motion and a second. Any discussion or comments on that? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous vote, thank you. Okay, number 8, B, under number 6 is resolution 2024-12, authorizing the disposition of certain personal property and providing for other related matters. Need a motion on that.
I'll make a motion, we approve resolution 2024-12.
Second?
Second.
Second, got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
What is it?
Yeah.
What are certain personal property and other things? What are we voting on?
That, Mr. Hester, you like to?
Yes, I would, please, thank you. So those are 3 ambulances that are, date back to, one of them as old as 1999, that the fleet maintenance unit has been using for parts on our other ambulances for several years. So we can't sell those at auction as we normally do, so those will go to the scrapyard and we will sell the metal is basically what's happening. But we're to a point we've scrapped them, they don't run, and so we'll just get the money for the scrap on it.
So it's junk.
It's junk, yes, sir.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous vote, thank you. Okay, moving along to number 7, the administrative report.
Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman and Council. I'll try to get through this as quick as possible. I want to give a quick update on our FEMA numbers. Chester County damage claims that were registered. Again, remember, we had 3 days of in-person FEMA on-site where they were taking individuals for their individual assistance program. 1,622 Chester residents registered for claims through the individual assistance program. 1,098 were approved for a total county approved funds of $612,582. And so that's a quick update. We're still, I say we, FEMA is still accepting claims online or by phone. So again, anybody who there's obviously a list of criteria such as temporary housing expenses, home repairs, disaster-related personal property losses that weren't covered by insurance. You can still apply with FEMA. The number 2 item that's on my list is there will be an after-action review for county emergency services response to the Hurricane Helene, This is going to be held this Thursday, November 7th at 6 p.m. at our emergency services, or the EMS building. And so this is for all fire, EMS, law enforcement personnel, our volunteer fire group, and any of our public works that we're involved in. This is our chance to really sit down and review all of the different things from planning to during the hurricane to after the hurricane and what we can do better. So just wanted to update you guys because I know a couple meetings ago I advised you that we would be doing that debriefing, and there were some things we can definitely improve upon as we go forward. And so it's always good to have those debriefings
What time is that?
That is at 6 PM.
That's basically the same time as the public hearing in Richburg for the planned development.
That is correct. And so those two have a little bit of conflict, and so I do plan on attending the start of the Richburg, and then coming straight over here for that. So there is a little bit of conflict in those. Number 3 item that I have on my list is just a reminder that our comprehensive plan meetings, which Mr. Agee just referred to one that's this week, they're going well so far. We've had our first 2. October 22nd was here at the Roddy Building, October 30th was in Great Falls. We had a particularly good turnout in Great Falls. A lot of productive conversations were had there. Our next meeting, as Mr. Agee just said, is this Thursday, November 7th, at the Richburg Fire Department, and that's from 5:30 to 7 p.m., followed by November 12th at the Fort Lawn Community Center, and November 13th at the Chester War Memorial Building, and then November 14th at the West Chester Fire Substation. All of those will be from 6 to 7:30, and we really hope for a turnout. So if you miss one of those and you can't make one, please go to another one. It doesn't have to be the district you live in. We're just trying to provide opportunity across the county for everybody to attend those. Next, I know everyone may have heard or seen, there's been a little bit of news out, but we had an announcement that Chester County received a Consolidated Rail Infrastructure and Safety Improvement Grant, and this is from the Federal Railroad Administration. It was awarded to Chester County for more than $27.4 million in new rail grant funding. The CRISI program provides funding for capital projects that improve passenger and freight rail transportation systems in terms of safety, efficiency, and reliability. This award for Chester County's Piedmont Regional Rail Capacity Improvement Project is the name of the project. It addresses multiple track and signal improvements on the Lancaster and Chester, the LNC, and its interchange with Norfolk Southern. And it'll contribute to a 20%, and there's a 20% non-federal match on the project that G&O Railroad will be paying that match for this project. Upon completion, it is anticipated that the project will create opportunities for increased rail-served businesses in Chester, while also, and this is what everyone is mainly concerned with, decreased traffic congestion at the current downtown rail crossing. So this is a really big announcement for us. And I know when I first started here about 1 year and 8 months ago, one of the big topics on everyone's mind and agenda was the congestion from that rail traffic. And so this has been a long time in the works, and that grant funding is in place. We did a press release, and I think, Robert, you got that out every day, or today, to all our news media, but that's a really big
Is
announcement.
that where they're gonna move the rail yard out of Chester down south?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Move it off of Canalwood. No,
That's
It'll
going,
be out, what am I trying, Beltline,
Yeah, Beltline.
Beltline.
Yes, sir, Mr. Kelly.
Well, that's,
that's gonna fix, they're gonna fix some of the railroad tracks that, in Chester, that's bad in Chester, is
Let's-
that gonna be,
This project is more to take congestion out, so I think when it comes to those, just like the one that you gave me several months back, we just have to get with the rail company. They were pretty quick in fixing that one, so I think anytime we have those issues, it's our job to get with them and put in work orders. Now, how soon that they get to fixing those. The biggest thing to understand is we can't touch the tracks, and we can't put asphalt down, and we
Yeah.
can't make repairs. They have to do it, so, but
I was just concerned about right over there at Clark Store, where it's real bad right there. We need to get that man got a business there, and we need to fix that.
And we will continue to work with them to see if they can make some improvements to that area. You're right.
Thank you, sir.
Next topic is, don't forget that tomorrow is Election Day. County offices will be closed tomorrow, and also Veterans Day is this coming Monday. and county offices will also be closed. And then I'll be making a quick presentation next in place of Mr. Hayes. I just wanted to say that Mr. Hayes has really been doing a good job, not only in the project management, but he's filling in today, and he's been going to all the voting precincts and ensuring that they are all, that we basically have all of our final needs with regard to ADA accessibility and anything else that needs to be taken care of for our election supervisor. So he's putting out signs, putting up ramps, and so forth. And he's been out all day doing that, and that's where he is tonight. So I'll do his next presentation as well. But with that, Mr. Chairman, that concludes my administrator's report.
All righty then.
Let me ask him one question. Are you going to take care of this lady's problem?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All righty. Moving right along here to B is for the second reading of CCTA 24-05 AP. Chester County Zoning Ordinance, Text Amendment, Chapter 4. Am I on the wrong page?
You do, AJ.
Down at the bottom.
Should be 8 Old Business A.
Let me see here. I got my
Hey,
page.
Mr. Brown, before you get started, can I ask a question to
This one, Joe.
Mr. Hester?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hester, like on tomorrow, is we gonna have police officers at the voting place, so, you know, our people down in Orangeburg, they is ready to fight at the voting poll, and we need some protection at them polls tomorrow.
So we have our chief deputy here. He can inform us as to what's going on. But again, our election supervisor would have to request that law enforcement presence there. That is not typical. I can tell you that typically from an election standpoint, law enforcement stays a pretty good distance away because of the fact that it could be considered intimidation.
Great answer.
That's what it is?
Yes, sir. We will be around,
Okay.
but we're not going to be at the polls.
And that's generally what happens. They're in the areas if they're called, but there's some strict laws regarding law enforcement at polling places.
Okay, thank you.
I know I answered it for you, Joe.
Thank you, Mr. Brown.
All right. That's good.
I forgot I used to do that.
That's what I was gonna say. He couldn't wait to answer that question.
All right, does everybody on the hard copy here? Mine went from the administrative report to old business, which the A under that was the capital project updated CPST by Mr. Hayes, which Mr. Hester took care of that, and my next one was.
No, sir, I'm gonna take care of that real quick.
Okay, all right.
So if we're at A and you allow me, I will give a quick update.
Okay, I thought you had done that before, when he said he was out.
So the quick update is, Mr. Hayes had reported back in, I believe it was July, that I think his first report was actually at the beginning of the year, where we were 30 projects have been started, or I'm sorry, out of 53 projects, 30 were complete with 56% complete. In July, 35 have been completed with 66% completion. As of today, I think the key thing is 100% of the projects have been started, and we are 80% complete at this point. So the majority of the ones that aren't complete would be like your Rodman, which is well underway. Again, it's just spending the money through the process. The soccer fields, which are well under the way, the money's been spent. Great Falls Visitor Center, we know that project is going out for bid, and so, as soon as that goes out for bid, but the real key there is just to ensure that the rest of this money gets spent as quick as possible.
What about the drains at the substation on Knox's station?
For the Richburg substation, so when I was looking at the Richburg substation, they had been given, I'm going to use round figures, it was approximately $65,000, $70,000, somewhere in that area. there was still $20,000, roughly $24,000 remaining in that. And so I'm not sure if that's encumbered already for the repairs, and
This
it's
is
awaiting.
the drains in the pad.
Right.
There were three projects. One was the generator, one was the enclosure, and one was the cutting the drains into the concrete pad and putting a drain. Those were the three projects that were approved. So
So I know two of them are.
two of them have done.
I don't know if the other one's encumbered, but that would really be up to Richburg Fire Department to ensure that the rest of their money's spent.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. But I'll follow up with
But
Mr.
It
Melton.
had to go out for bids, so for the sake of argument, did it get bid?
I don't know where the status of that is.
Okay.
Any other questions regarding the
The total number of those projects was 55,
53?
53.
Those 53 that were funded under that capital project sales tax.
That was a lot of stuff.
It was a lot of projects, Mr. Branham.
Great that all of them been started and some of them already been completed, so great report on that. All right, now we're gonna move along to, B. The second reading of CCTA 24-05 AP, Chester County zoning ordinance, text amendments, chapter 4-4133, AP Airport Overlay District Regulations. Recommend to add new text, chapter 4-4-133, Chester Catawba Regional Airport Overlay District Regulations. The Planning Commission voted 6-0 to approve. Need a motion on that.
I'll make a motion, we approve second reading of CCTA 24-05.
All right, need a second?
Second.
Second. Okay, any discussion or questions on that? Hear none, all in favor of the second reading of CCTA 24-05, raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. Unanimous vote, thank you. Okay, for the second reading of CCMA 24-12, Chester County request tax map 078-00-00-233-000 located off Armory Road, Chester County, South Carolina 29706, to be rezoned from limited industrial ID2 to general commercial district GC. The Planning Commission voted 6-0 to approve. Need a motion on that.
I'll make a motion, we approve second reading of CCMA 24-12.
Okay, need a second?
I second it.
Second, Mr. Agee. Any discussion or questions on that?
What is that? Is that the dog pound?
That's a rezoning of the animal shelter, yes, sir.
Animal control. Yeah. Any more questions? You're done. All in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous vote, thank you. Under new business, under A, his report on Chester County zoning ordinance text amendment CCTA 24-01-04 on vegetation buffers. I'd like to call Mr. Jeremy Ward, our planning director, to give us an update on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, County Council. So I'm here before you this evening. If you'll recall, at the past meeting, I was asked by Councilman Guy to answer some questions regarding this. So I'm here for that. You should see in your packet a memo with some research and more information on that. So just a quick recap of where things are, some of the history of these text amendments. This was brought before County Council by the Catawba Riverkeepers. We have Mr. Ryan Carter and some of his staff here this evening to answer some questions about that. If you have questions on that subject, it was particularly brought by Councilman Vaughn, and I know others on the County Council have worked on it too. There are 4 text amendments before you that were reviewed last time and then were tabled until this meeting. They were brought before the Chester County Planning Commission. These text amendments are to create a 100-foot buffer of undisturbed vegetation between development of certain types and perennial waterways, which are any body of water like a stream, a river, that flows or is in existence year-round, not puddles. So the first 3 amendments were for zoning districts ID1, ID2, and ID3. Those are the districts for manufacturing, industrial There was also a text amendment for PD, which are planned developments, larger mixed-use or single-family subdivisions. The Planning Commission voted unanimously to approve the first three, ID1 and ID2 and ID3. They thought that the one on PDs needed more work, more clarification on what sorts of land disturbance activity were permitted within that 100-foot buffer. A few of them also thought that potentially the 100 feet needed to be amended, that number itself. So I was directed, as mentioned by Councilman Guy, to do some research. You will see in your memo that several other counties do have these requirements in place. This is not something that's regulated by the EPA or South Carolina as a state. It is left up to the prerogative of municipalities and counties if they want to enforce some sort of buffer or protection from waterways. You can see Greenville, Lancaster, Spartanburg, and York counties that I put in there, that they have some varied text with regards to the amount of protection there, what it is applicable to, and what sort of land disturbance is in there. So I'm here if you have any questions. Again, Mr. Carter with the River Keepers is here as well. If you have any questions for him just about where that 100-foot buffer distance came from, or anything else behind the initiation of this amendment.
Does anyone on council have anything for Mr. Ward or the River Keepers?
Yes, I'd like for Ryan Carter to come up, please, if he would, and talk about why the 100-foot vegetated buffer is the sweet spot. What is it special about the 100-foot?
Absolutely. Thank you, Councilman. Thank you, Council, for allowing us to be here tonight. Where that 100-foot came from, there's a lot of best practices behind it, and I wrote it down here. Looking at our state extension programs, Clemson and USC, their reports say 100-foot. Virginia Tech, Georgia, NC State, USDA Forest Service, South Carolina Forest Service, SCDNR, all says that 100 feet's kind of that sweet spot where you have water quality, where these buffers filter out pollutants, nutrients, as well as sediment, filters that out, keeps that out of the water, and provides a good, happy balance where you're able to have that economic growth and development while preserving quality of life and quality of your waters.
I think one of the things that most folks don't probably hear about very often is when you talk about nutrients. We have problems in the Catawba chain of lakes with algal blooms, and that is a direct result of the nutrients going into the water, and that comes from landscaped areas for the most part, doesn't it?
Yes, sir. There's landscaped areas. There's what's called the first flush. That first inch of rain picks up whatever's been on a parking lot. So brake dust, engine oil, any of that stuff would flow through a buffer, get filtered out. So then it's just water soaking into the groundwater and into your waterways.
The algal blooms, I know in Wateree, you see on the Facebook pages for Lake Wateree, there's a constant uproar in the summertime especially, talking about these algal blooms, and it's some real nasty stuff. It ruins recreational use. A lot of times it's harmful to people, and that's beside sedimentation. That's something a lot of people don't hear about, but like the sheet that we have in front of us goes through all of that. If you look at the information that's on there, you can read more about why 100 feet and what we're proposing in Chester County.
So, this handout we have, I don't know if the public was privy to it, but what I'm seeing is Greenville, Spartanburg, York, and Lancaster, they're requiring somewhere between 20 and 50 feet, and we're doing 100, correct?
Yes, sir, you are correct.
Well, at the end of the day, Mr. Guy, if you go, I went down to Wateree and rode all the way from Wateree to Cedar Creek, And pretty much everything on the right-hand side of Kershaw is clear cut all the way down to the water. And there's some mega houses along that way. A lot of tax money coming in. And when you get on up there into Lancaster, well, I don't know, I guess you get into Lancaster County, the state of South Carolina has a conservation place there where all the land is in a conservation easement, and there's no thing, it's all right to the river, the growth is. Spartanburg County and Greenville County, big counties. A lot of growth coming into Spartanburg. It is projected to be one of the 5 counties in the state of South Carolina that has about a 60% increase in population in the next 18 years, along with Lancaster County. The 100-foot buffer precludes anybody in a lot of places having any access to the water. And I just don't quite understand. Chester County doesn't really have that much, except down there where you live on Fishing Creek.
Yeah.
Is that true?
Now, one thing you need to keep in mind, when the planning commission talked about the planned developments, which we got a recommendation to not talk about that tonight, or to wait till we start working on the rewrite of the zoning ordinance. But you got to remember that we're talking about industrial sites, and we're talking about planned developments. And there's a language available, if Mr. Carter come back up and talk about the language that does allow people to maintain their buffer. Talk about that a little bit.
Certainly. Thank you, Councilman Vaughn. The phrasing here is land disturbing activity. So it's excavators, it's that kind of stuff. But if there's handheld equipment, I understand people wanting to maintain that view shed. York County's ordinance allows for brush to be maintained and removed. It's just that land disturbing activity where you're ripping things out of the ground, loosening up that soil, and then that soil then ends up in your waterways, impacting downstream neighbors and property values.
So,
Well, Mr. Huff's here tonight. He is on the Chester County Planning Commission. And they voted to approve in the 6-0 all of these except the planned development. And so what we got to be very careful of is we don't want to, I don't want to not support the Planning Commission, because I think they are the ones that need to have the information. And in talking with Mr. Huff, this was supposed they had talked about this coming back to them so they could get some research information. Now, Mr. Ward has gone and done that, it looks like. Now, if he's correct, I'm like Mr. Guy here with the Greenville Spartanburg, and there's some Reedy River, the Tiger River, the Broad River, all of these are over there, and I don't quite understand the difference. Because we went and looked at a piece of property in Chester County the other day, 900 and something acres, that we're talking about trying to figure out. The state of South Carolina just approved 62,000 acres in Marion County, Williamsburg County, and Florence County that is going to be a forestry conservation easement, and out of the 62,000, only 7,000 acres of it will be available to the public. We also have people here at Pulpwood, and they own property right up to the river. So if we say they can't cut trees down right up to the river, you know, that's taking their property away from them. And I think we need to be very careful in this. But what the Planning Commission's already approved, I'm fine with that. But I'm real concerned about the planned development. I'm not somebody that's for planned developments at all. But I think we need to let the Planning Commission do their job.
I think we're gonna handle that a little bit different than we do the B, C, and D. We're gonna handle that, you're referring to E, which is planning.
we have a moratorium on planned developments anyway, so we're not losing a thing. We've
Yep.
got plenty of time to look at this.
Oh, I understand
Make sure
that.
we got it right.
But according to the ordinance, once we get through with it, and we do it all, then they can go to the Planning and Zoning Appeals Board, and it's out of our hands.
hopefully we're gonna eliminate from doing that. So let's get to that point, and then we'll
Okay.
discuss that when we get to, on that part there, so. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna, this here is, on B, C, and D. The verbiage on the, I'm gonna read the first one, and then we're not gonna read the second to save time here, but, on the B is the first reading of CCTA 24-01, ID 1, Chester County zoning ordinance text amendment, chapter 4-4-120, ID 1, restricted industrial district regulations recommendation to add new text. The planning commission voted 6-0 to approve. And this verbiage on this, well, I'll read this one and we won't read it on the other two, is a text amendment. Vegetation buffer is defined as an area, strip, or plot undisturbed vegetation running parallel to any perennial surface water within 100 linear feet from the top of the bank to the perennial surface waters, and questions to where land disturbing activities are occurring. Land disturbances are prohibited within the vegetation buffer. This vegetation buffer is established for the protection of the water resources of Chester County by reducing the amount of stormwater runoff reaching to the water bodies, enhancing water infiltration, and minimizing the discharge of sediment, nutrients, pollutants, and receiving surface of water. Permeable surface trails are allowed within the buffer zone so long as they remain above the top of the bank of the perennial surface water. And an owner or authorized agent may appeal to the ZBA, the Zoning Board of Appeals, on a form approved by the zoning administrator for the variances from requirements and of this zoning ordinance when the strict regulations would result in unnecessary hardship. So that's the text that we're not going to read on the two more of those, but on the First Amendment, there was on the first reading of the CCTA 24-1, on the ordinance there, we need a motion on that.
Mr. Chairman, I'll motion that we approve the first reading of CCTA 24-01, ID 1. And do you want to go ahead and do all three of them at once?
Let's do them one at a time still, please.
Yeah, let's do them one at a time.
Okay.
All right, you got a motion on that, need a second.
I'll second that with a
A
question.
motion and a second, any further discussion?
Yes, sir. So, if I could get Mr. Ward to come forward. So, as this reads, would this, of course, this is for ID 1, would this exempt any, would anything be grandfathered in that's already existing within that buffer, or would that create a issue for those ID 1 landowners?
I think that's an excellent question. I do not have the answer for that. Mr. Levister, have we considered if any of the properties would be grandfathered in?
Good evening, council. So I would think, Pete, that what was already existing would be grandfathered in. It's just going to basically address any new development within those districts.
Do we need to clarify the language to make sure that's
We
clear?
can, if you want to change the
I would think
language.
maybe before second reading, it would be my desire that we would clarify that, just so there's no confusion.
Okay. I can get with, me and Jeremy can get with you what you would like to put.
I think let's get with the county attorney and let's just put in there that anything prior to this date is grandfathered into its current zoning based on the buffer.
Yes, sir.
Let me ask you one question. Basically, when you read this, it's talking about the Catawba River. Is the Broad River included in this?
It would encompass any perennial waterway. That would include any creek, river that flows year-round.
So this would be the Broad River. This would be Fishing Creek. This would be Rocky Creek. Any waterway in the county. I can't remember, Sandy River out in there. All of this would include the waterways.
It would include the creek in your backyard. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
or
going to
any pond
include,
or anything like
it's going to
that,
include any perennial water.
Right.
Again, though, this is for ID 1,
Yeah.
not for R2, not for agriculture, not for, the majority of our land is not zoned ID 1.
Yeah,
A small
but as
amount
you
of it
said the other day, a lot of the land is farmland is in Lowry's, and that other land is not in Lowry's.
So to be clear, this is ID1,
One.
only ID1.
Well, that's what I'm concerned about, because most of the ID1 is going to be somewhere out in my district.
For the public's clarification, give me some explanation on ID1 so that the public will understand exactly what type of industry would fall into
Absolutely.
ID1.
So we do have 3 levels of zoning districts for industry. Industry being any sort of manufacturing, particularly heavier manufacturing activity that's not commercial. So we have ID1, ID2, ID3. ID1 is the less intensive industrial or manufacturing. So it'll be the zoning district that has the least amount of pollution, whether that be noise, runoff. And most of the industries, I think Mr. Long and his team at the Economic Development do a really good job of bringing in clean industries. So this would be those industries that have the least amount of external pollution or noise, and then it ramps up to ID3, which would be those that have the most amount of pollution and noise.
So on the agenda, we're actually going to vote on ID1, ID2, and ID3 before we get to the planned development. So what's going on in my head right now is, let's say, because it says undisturbed buffer. Let's say, for instance, I know we're voting on ID1 right now, but we're going to get to the ID2 and the ID3. But let's just say, for instance, we have an industry that wants to come here to Chester County that have cooling towers or chillers or something of that nature, and they want to pump the water from one of these waterways to cool off their chillers or to cool off their water towers, and this says undisturbed. Will they be allowed to run the piping in to do that? Because in certain counties and certain industries, they do that.
Absolutely, Councilman Guy. I think that's an excellent question. I would envision in that situation that they would be presenting a variance request before the Zoning Board of Appeals. That would be, in my mind, a very reasonable request for a company to make, because it would be a one-time disturbance to withdraw water, and they'd have to undergo and receive the permitting from the Department of Environmental Services for that. And really, the only place that I could envision that being applicable would be our rivers, our 2 rivers, and any of the larger creeks, which is really only a small percentage of the county. But yes, under this ordinance as written, they would have to apply for a variance for that.
So I don't know much about the farm industry, but that made me think too. Would there ever be any applications, Mr. Wilson, since you're into that business, that someone who had a farm or something near a waterway, would they ever need to get in there and pump water for something as well, that they would have to get that same variance? So my question is, should we have that verbiage in there, or should we just wait to get the variance? That's what I'm getting at.
So all the farmland would be under the R2 or the agriculture zoning, not typically ID1.
I got you.
And so,
Exempted. When we first started looking at this, Pete was the first one I went to find out, would agricultural land be affected by it? And we worked out the problems that he foresaw and dealt with them.
So with in your professional opinion, do you think that we need to have that verbiage in here, or should we just require all of the industry that will come in here that may need something of that nature to pump from those waterways? Would they have to get the variance, or should we have the verbiage in it? What do you think is the best thing?
It's up to the council's opinion on that. I definitely see where you're coming from. However, I think the chances of that particular scenario happening are fairly low. And the paperwork and the time extension that would be required for that industry to bring the request before the Zoning Board of Appeals is pretty light. Because as Mr. Agee mentioned, they would only be required to present it before them. It wouldn't be like a rezoning where they'd come before the Planning Commission, and then 3 readings to the County Council, and that's when the timeline drags on. But if they were seeking a variance from this, that would be a quick, easy, and inexpensive process for a situation that likely would not come up very often, if at all. I am not particularly worried about that happening, but that's up to the council's opinion if language needs to be added.
Mr. Hester just told you a problem. That's going to be the first problem you're going to have. The railroad got a $24 million grant to move traffic out of downtown Chester to Beltline. It goes by Beltline, Rocky Creek. So all of that railroad, now I used to work on the railroad, so I know exactly where it goes. You're gonna be dealing with having to have some kind of ability to let the railroad expand out there, putting tracks and stuff in. And if it's right over the top of Rocky Creek, and that's where most of that is out there,
Is this upgrading the railroad, or is this
I don't
a
think-
completely new railroad?
From my understanding, I don't think it's a half a mile from Rocky Creek.
I don't know where it is.
This is a new section of rail
Okay.
that's gonna be
Understand
added.
the rail, Where
Okay.
they gonna have, where they can store cars and they can pull a full lane, range of cars in there at one time and eliminate that congestion down at Clack Service Station.
Again, and you have to understand too, let's go back to Griffin Properties. We all remember Griffin Properties, right? And there was some streams within that property. Council arbitrarily, I use the word arbitrarily because it was council's discretion, and the agreement for that property chose 100-foot buffers. There was an exception made within that because of a driveway issue and a property line issue that reduced it in a certain area to 75 foot. So I think the goal with this is to try not to be arbitrary, but to also give a way out for circumstances where you've got to cross something. Again, if you had an industrial park that you needed to cross, that HWC site that Robert and them had been working on had plenty of little, I don't know if they're perennial streams in them, but I know there were some wet areas. But again, there's a way out for any company or any industry to cross one of those or to get a variance for any other reason. And I think that our zoning board of appeals would probably do a very good job, as they always have done, in making those decisions. So, again, council's, a lot of great questions, but there is that way out or that alternate for the decisions as well in the industrial ID 1, 2, and 3.
I think we had a motion and a second on that, is that correct? So, we're ready to vote on it now then. All in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous vote. Okay, moving along to C, which is the first reading of CCTA 24-02 ID2, is Chester County Zoning Ordinance Text Amendment, Chapter 4-4-122 ID2 Limited Industrial District Regulations Recommendations to add text. The Planning Commission voted 6-0 to approve. And that has the same verbiage as the other one up there, so we need a motion on that.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the first reading of CCTA 24-02 ID-2.
All right, need a second?
Second.
Second, got a motion and a second. Any comments or questions on that one?
I have one question. The last sentence of that is going to be, as you said, the same verbiage as B, an owner or authorized agent may appeal the requirements to the zoning board of appeals. Is that the same?
Zoning Board of Appeals, that's the same. This is,
Okay.
I believe it's identically the same verbiage.
Okay.
All right, any more questions? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous vote. Okay, moving along to D, which takes it to the ID3 section, is first reading of the CCTA 24-03 ID3, Chester County Zoning Ordinance Text Amendment, Chapter 4-4, 124 ID3, General Industrial District Regulations Recommendations to add new text. The Planning Commission voted 6-0 to approve. Need a motion on that.
Mr. Chairman, I move that council approve the first reading of CCTA 24-03 ID3.
Need a second?
I'll second.
Second? All right, any questions or comments on that?
The same question about the last sentence of that, of D, is the same as B and C.
Same as
Okay.
That's correct. And also along with that, Mr. Chair, just for my clarification and the county attorney as well, that on C and D as well, that the grandfather clause be added to that text amendment as well.
we can do that on the second reading, can't
But I'm saying you want me to add that for second reading on
Oh, yeah.
all of those.
That's for sure.
I want to just clarify that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we also add the language that allows a person to do light maintenance on the buffer zone? Is that something we want to do at this point?
You guys can make a motion. You guys can amongst yourselves discuss that and have me add that, absolutely. But you're going to have to define, or we're going to have to define before the next meeting what light maintenance is. Then you can vote on that. But if you'd like for us to add that to all three, I can have Mr. Ward do a little research on what light maintenance, offer a few options to council, and then we can put that in the verbiage as well as to define the definition on the next meeting, and then you guys can vote to approve that if that's a recommendation. But, Ms. Workman, would that need to be in the motion? Would the motion need to be amended to add that?
Do we need to make another motion, including that verbiage?
I'm gonna say yes.
Okay, all right, then we need to take away the second, and Mr. Vaughn needs to make another motion. Who seconded that?
I second it. I withdraw my second.
Okay, all right.
I'll restate my motion. Are we going to have to restate every motion?
No, sir.
Okay.
Now, just,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like council to approve the first reading of CCTA 24-03 ID 3 with the addition of language that is crafted by Mr. Ward to allow maintenance that does not disturb the earth on properties along the perennial waterways.
does that cover that, Mr. Hester?
That'll give us,
Okay, RK, we need a second on that.
I'll second.
You got a second, Mr. Guy? Any further questions? Hear none, all in favor, raise your right hand and say aye. Aye. Vote. Okay, this here is different here, the one that was denied. This is be on the E. Is the first reading of CCTA 24-04 is PD. Chester County Zoning Ordinance, Text Amendment, Chapter 4-4-130 PD Plan Development District Regulations recommended to add new text. The Planning Commission voted 6-0 to deny.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we postpone the reading of CCTA 24-04 PD, Chapter 4, Section 4-130 PD, Plan Development District Regulation Text, amendments to be taken up during the zoning ordinance update regarding plan developments, which is scheduled for spring of 2025.
I make a motion to second that.
Okay, all right, that's good. You got a motion and a second on that. Any discussion, comments on that?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
You said you postponed it.
Postpone until then, that's right. So I would like to say, Mr. Vaughn and Ryan brought these buffers, the idea of this forward. You know, there's been, we've seen the growth happening in Richburg. We've seen the issues that have come from some runoff in some of the streams in the PDs, and the PDs seem to be really the cause of those. And so, to me, it seemed like a reasonable thing to push those buffers back. One of my goals for council is for us to always set our expectations for developers, whether it's for planned developments or whether it's for industrial properties, for anyone really, to set our expectations ahead of them so that they know what we want to see, and then when they come here, there won't be any surprises. And so I'm still very much in favor of seeing if we can examine what that needs to look like, those buffers for planned developments. But as Mr. Vaughn has said earlier, we're really losing nothing delaying this because we currently have a moratorium in that area that is really seeing that growth happen. So we have time. So let's get it right, do it so that it sticks and so that it works.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of postponing that, Mr. Wilson's motion there, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous vote, thank you. Okay, boards and commissions. I got one appointment to the John Keziah and Parks Advisory Board appointment. for District 3 down there, Ms. Carol Salter. She's very involved in the community down there in Blackstock, and she'd be a great one to do this. And also, I'd like to say that that's John Keziah Park, that's my uncle. Well, John Keziah is my uncle, and he donated out of his estate to that, I think. Just to let you know that I got some personal stuff on that, so, yeah. So, I'll make that motion, I need a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, so, motion and a second, any discussion?
I'd like to say, you said Miss Carolyn Salters, right? Miss Carolyn?
Yeah, Carolyn.
Yeah, she's a really good lady, so,
I think that's John Boulware's daughter.
it is. I definitely have to second
Everybody knows
that.
Blackstock Fish Camp, they've ever been there to eat, so I think she may even work there.
You said you want to take us to the Blackstock Fish Camp or something?
Yeah, I'll take you down there with the proper cost. All right. All in favor of Ms. Salter being on the John Keziah Park Advisory Board, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous vote. Thank you. Okay, moving right along to 11 is the executive session. Discussions of matters relating to proposed locations, expansions, and provisions of services engaged in location or expansion of industries or other business in the area served by the public body. Also, to receive legal advice regarding agreement with Justic wastewater recovery covered by the attorney-client privilege. Also, to discuss the personnel matter regarding parks, recreation, and tourism department. I need a motion to discuss those in executive session.
I'll make a motion, we go into executive session.
Okay, need a second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand and say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous vote, we're in executive session.